Welcome. I'm Steve,
Hello, I'm Kevin.
and this is Nerds Talk. Today, we're going to talk about a few things. Talk about some interesting things, but I haven't been around for a while. So, what you been up to?
I've been doing nerdy things because I like doing nerdy things. Uh,
Yeah,
I've been looking at the whole basis of reality, and it's messing with my mind. So now I don't even know if I'm real or if I'm just an illusion, or maybe I'm the real one and you're the AI illusion. I don't know, but I think that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it?
yeah,
Reality.
yeah, definitely. Talking about reality. What about artificial reality? Artificial intelligence. I've been messing around. Well, first of all, I was messing around with Chat GPT, which is okay. I'm also been messing around with it's another Google thing called AI Test Kitchen, which is slightly different from ChatGTP and Bard. So with ChatGTP and Bard, you just ask it questions. You can ask it to write you an article, or you can ask it to do all kinds of stuff. And it's not too bad at putting something together. But with AI Test Kitchen, um, it's more creative, so it's not you can't ask it um to like write an article about something, or tell you something factual, but it's more about imagination, so you can create stories with it.
I've messed around with Chat GPT,
Mm-hmm.
and I was actually quite freaked out by some of it. So I'm writing, obviously, my novel. I'm still writing at the moment for the
Yeah.
last year and a half or so. But I basically wrote in there, write me a novel based on, and I wrote the premise of what my novel's about. And it actually came up with what I first thought, oh, that's actually a really good plot it's just come up with, like an
Oh,
intricate plot from start to finish.
yeah.
But I did notice the thing what you can see with the difference with AI, what it hasn't got is it's sort of looking at what could you say, like more of your cliche kind of plot points.
Yeah.
Where with my novel goes a little bit questioning about, well, what's reality, or someone's mental thought processes and things like that. And it went into a sort of a very kind of a more paranormal edge, where I think when you
Oh,
look at AI, it tends to play it safe.
yeah, I would agree with that, but because the way I think it works is that it literally just searches for stuff, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
every word it comes up with is just like a predictor, like what in relation to what you've asked, what comes up next. So it just says a load of words that obviously make sense, but like people can look at it and go, "Oh my God, this is it's like talking to somebody," but it's not really, is it?
No,
It's
and
not really.
it's quick in how it works. And the way I'm thinking that it's working is, for example, with every story in human history has been told. It's all just variations of themes. So an
Yeah.
AI is draw. You also give me a story about someone going missing and then being found again. Don't right, and then it's instantly scanning through all plots that involve that and bringing
Yeah.
something together in a random way, and just variations on a theme. Now, the interesting thing that I've been looking at with AI, and I'm glad you brought this one up. I don't know if have you watched The Rings of Power, Amazon's The Rings of Power?
No, I've seen the first two episodes, or maybe an episode and a bit.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into a full review of it or anything like that, but there is a theory, and I've watched a video on this, and I think it makes sense, right? What
Hmm.
they think they've done is that Amazon are using some very advanced AI tool as an
Mm.
experiment. So they've put the parameters in of what they want the series to be, and the AI has literally generated them their script as an experiment, a multi-million pound experiment to see if AI can create content for them. And the reason, the theory that they think that it's AI doing this is not only the fact that it the plot the plotting is very poor, but there's inconsistencies within the plot. Now, and they're saying that the inconsistencies are the sort of thing that an AI would do because it doesn't really know any better. So, for
Hmm.
example, they the little hobbit people in it, they're not hobbits, but they're like some kind of hobbit
Early
society,
versions, yeah,
and they have this whole thing about nobody gets left behind and a little song, and like we don't leave anyone behind.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
later on,
I think I've seen more than a couple of episodes then. Because you've just reminded us there's a bit, I
yeah,
really made me laugh that you get injured, they leave you behind because they're too
yeah.
scared to stick around and help you.
But
So,
but hang on, you just said no one gets left behind, and the bloke sprains his foot. Sorry, you got to get left behind. Oh,
yeah.
it's getting better on it. I can limp on it. Nah, we leave you behind. But you made this big thing about nobody gets left behind. Well, clearly they do, and there's other stuff
I,
that they're.
I didn't see. I didn't even pick up on that because I thought they were because they had that whole ceremony for the people that were left behind, and it was all
Yeah,
sad, and they were all upset about it. But and then later they're just like, "Oh, you sprained your ankle. See ya. Bye. we'll,
yeah.
we'll we'll mourn your
So,
death later."
and what if they left the others behind? I've got a splinter. Oh, sorry, but I can get it. It's a splinter. No, sorry. Oh, bloody hell. Well, you don't want to get hurt in that group, do you? But it's the dialogue as well. So there's the infamous script bit in the first episode where he says some weird. It's almost like an AI is trying to be philosophical, but in a way that an AI would be philosophical because it hasn't got the human element. And it's the dialogue. It just goes along the lines of, "Do you know why a stone sinks? Because it's not looking up at the stars." You're like,
Yeah, I remember
that's
that.
not
Yeah.
why a stone doesn't float. Or why does a boat float? Because it looks up at the stars. It's like, you're trying to be deep philosophical here, but that
Yeah.
doesn't actually make any sense because a boat doesn't sink because of buoyancy and a stone doesn't have buoyancy, not because it's not looking up. That's like it's AI trying to be clever. And there's other little bits in there as well, like the time, like they'll have all these bits happening in one area and then they'll go back to another area where like only 2 minutes have gone by, but then weeks have gone by there, and it's all inconsistent. So
Okay.
it's either very poor writers and showrunners, or they're using some kind of AI tech that's just they're letting it do its thing and see if anyone notices it.
Maybe. Well, I was. You could be right because I was going to say that maybe you would have writers that would clean all of this up. So if it doesn't really make, if there's parts of it that don't make sense, then they would correct it. Well, we would, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
but um, but maybe
but
you're right. Big,
let
big
us do its thing.
experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an
Well, you know what
experiment.
though? Guaranteed in a couple of years' time, you can see it happening. AI will be so advanced, you'll be able to say, right, make me a film starring these people about this, and it'll generate some kind of short film or whatever, and you'll be able to everyone instead of having professional directors. I don't know whether cinema will be dead by this point because people will just create their own films from their own imagination and then probably post it on YouTube, and people that don't have much of an imagination can watch other people's films. That is
Well,
all created by AI. It's going to be interesting.
the thing is though with the and why they think they've done it with Tolkien is that it's got such a rich history and background that you
Yeah,
could feed literally everything into a computer and it's got all
yeah,
of that like thousands upon thousands of words and stories to draw from to build something. So your parameters that you've given it is vast and it's got all of Tolkien's works to draw upon to
yeah,
try and create something. To my mind, though, that if you have done that, you would like to think that you would have a script writer that would be editing those, a script editor, essentially human, that would think, well, hang on, that doesn't work. They can't
yeah,
say no one gets left behind and someone's getting left behind. And that philosophy thing about rocks sinking, on the surface, it might sound really deep, but it really isn't.
yeah,
Unless, well, all I think is that it's an experiment. AI is advanced, more advanced than what we've got access to, but just let it do all of it, and then that way we don't even have to pay for script editors. A computer will produce anything we want, and there's a theory that says that as well, that they're using this for streaming programs, and why the quality of programming has gone down drastically is because they're using AI. Disney, for example, with Star Wars stuff, all
mm-hmm.
of the Star Wars series that they're producing is absolute rubbish, and but they're churning it out very quickly. So are they
Yeah.
already using advanced AI techniques in
It would
order
make
to
sense.
develop?
It would make sense. Like if you wanted to write a blog, every single day you could go on ChatGPT and just go, yeah, write me an article about something about grass, right, growing and how to look after, how to maintain your lawn, right,
You've gone for
and
straight away an interesting subject, haven't you?
yeah, but you could just do that every day, copy and paste it, shove it on a blog, not even worry about it. And yeah, you'd be churning out a load of content, but the quality's not great. Like
How
as
do you
far
think
as
we make these podcasts? All secrets
yeah,
revealed, but
we
the quality's
well,
great.
well, you just reminded me, right? There's a company called 11 Labs, and you can input your voice. I was actually thinking about trying this with some of my articles. You can record your voice and upload it, and it will generate from your voice patterns. It will generate an artificial intelligent voice thing. You know what I'm on about, like
Yeah,
Google
no,
Voice.
it doesn't work with
Um,
your accent, though.
it, I haven't tried it yet, but I'm uh, I'm I'm gonna have a go. See how it sounds, because yeah, you're probably right. There's going to be some people's voices aren't
Oh,
suited to it. It's not going to be able to replicate it, is it?
I have
But
seen this. Elon Musk demonstrated it. He was basically chatting away, and he said, "All I have to do is that." And he started talking in like Morgan Freeman's voice, then
uh,
Barack Obama's voice,
that
instantaneously
oh that
translated into a different style voice. And that's scary when you think that you could put words in people's mouth
yeah, that
quite
is.
easily.
Well, this one, 11 Labs do. What you would do is you would just you'd write your article, um, paste it into the text box on the website, and then press like render or whatever, and it will generate that in a MP3, and you could use that as a little blog. But it's a bit like the other. What's the one that you were using?
Oh yeah, the Beatrix voice, the AI.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, a bit like that, except you're
Speech hello.
generating. Yes, Speechello, yeah. But so it's a bit like that, except you're generating that voice, or the system is generating that voice by using your voice, recording of your own voice. So
Right, I've got
that's quite interesting. I'm going to give it a go anyway. We'll see how it goes with that.
give it a go and then put it on the next podcast, and we'll see if like
Yeah.
you or someone else. So I have a question for you, and
Uh-oh.
if anyone wants to put it in the comments. Why do they need to employ actual celebrities on radio commercials or voiceovers to do like a voiceover? Surely someone that can do a really good impression of that celebrity could do it for half the price.
Yeah.
Is there some copyright on a celebrity's voice?
I don't think there is at the moment, but there will be in the future. Because
Yeah.
when you're looking at deep fakes, there's going to be a point where artificial intelligence it has got to that level where you can create whole movies and say use Arnold Schwarzenegger or whoever, and it will use them, and those people are going to say, hold on a minute. In fact, there's people that have put people's faces on
Yeah.
porn videos and that, isn't there? And
I have
I'm
there. What videos are those then?
no, there was. I heard about it the other week, or maybe a month ago. Somebody I don't know, it was in America somewhere in the US. I can't remember now, but they are doing it. It's the whole deep fake thing, isn't it?
Well, have
There's a
you?
lot of Instagram accounts that do it as well.
Yeah, I've seen the
Um,
Arnie's one. Have you seen the Arnold Schwarzenegger ones?
uh, oh, in fact, yes, I have, and you can do it yourself, can't you? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it's a bit like Snapchat. What you can do on Snapchat, it's a little bit like that, isn't it? Where it just plants. You can put your face on other characters, or vice versa, can't you?
Well, there's the Titanic Arnold Schwarzenegger one
Oh,
where
haven't
and the
seen that.
bloke actually dubs it with like Arnie's voice, and he's like, "I want you to paint me wearing this, but only this. Look at my boobies." It's quite amusing. So yeah, and that is impressive though. The deep fake that they've done on now, and I'm like, you could literally bring back dead actors and
Yeah.
better than what they did in Rogue One.
Well, they already are. They already are. I mean, well, I mean, it's probably not. It's much easier now, isn't it? Whereas I don't know with Fast and the Furious. Was it Fast and the Furious
No,
two
I
or
haven't seen
three?
any of those.
Well, one of the actors died in a car crash, and he died as they were making the film. So at the end of the film,
That's
they
ironic,
used.
isn't it?
Yeah, I know. But his brother was kind of stood in for him, but they planted I've forgotten the actor's name now, but they planted his face on his brother's face so that you can, do you know what I mean? So it finished. It was kind of a dedication to him as well, but they used his face on someone else, and it was his brother, so there was a much closer likeness, but they did it then. But I mean, that was a few years ago now, but now it's even easier to do that.
Yeah, but it makes me remember, like the Rogue One thing. I know it's a few years ago, but that Peter Cushing that they brought back for there, the voice was good, but it looked obviously CGI'd. But if they was to redo that now, they could put literally Peter Cushing's face on there.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't look as fake as what that CGI thing they did. So I reckon they should reshoot Rogue One. Which I still say is probably the only decent Star Wars film we've had for years.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not a big Star Wars fan.
I used to be, but Disney have wrecked it for me. It's AI has taken over the script writing clearly.
Yeah. Well, you see that anyway, don't you? As soon as you get somebody who's a creative genius, like what's his face, George Lucas, and they'll sell the rights to their product. Next thing you know, it's just been it's almost like music, isn't it? Um, like whatever's popular at the time, they'll grab a load of bands that sound that way and then boost them up and then ditch them as soon as everyone moved on to a different sound. Kind of that kind of thing. It ruins music a little bit, I think. But it's ruining films as well, isn't it? And even series.
I've got a feeling. I reckon the music is probably written by AI now as well. Yeah, so talking about how artificial intelligence is probably writing all our programs and writing all our music and things, it's making me think that I don't think anything is real anymore, which is what I have seen a very interesting theory about the nature of reality. You're going to be freaked out by this, I think.
Uh-oh.
Now, I just want to make a disclaimer. I am not a scientist. I'm not a quantum physicist. I know you might be shocked that I'm not, but I've watched some cool stuff on YouTube and I thought, oh yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everyone about it now. So I'll probably get loads of facts wrong and whatnot. So, but the main gist is going to be there.
Facts don't matter anymore.
Yeah, I know. You can fact check me all you like. Anyone listening to that, you can't sue me because I've said, well, I've probably got it all inaccurate and wrong. But
Yeah.
the main gist of it is so.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this was like in the 50s or 60s. They did this experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they had a particle beam, a gun firing a particle beam, and at a wall. So particles, they're supposed to go in a straight line. So you fire something from a particle gun, they will go in a straight line.
Right.
So they did this experiment. They set the gun up. They fired this gun, the particles, at a wall to see what would happen. Now, I'm not quite sure why they wanted to do this, but they did it anyway. So what they found is that, well, it doesn't make sense because the particles, they're in a scatter across the entire wall instead of what they would expect to be just one straight line.
All
So,
right.
but particles shouldn't behave like that. So they've gone, well, what we'll do is, oh, that's right. So before that, so between the gun and the wall, they put a slot in there, another wall with a straight slot down the middle of it, and fired the particles through the straight slot in the wall.
Yeah.
And then the back wall that they hit, these particles were scattering across the whole wall. So it should have been following the straight line of the slot.
Yeah.
So because particles travel in a straight line. So they've gone, well, that doesn't make sense. Why are the particles doing that? So what they did is they've gone, right, we need to look at what the particles are doing from between firing from the gun and hitting the wall. So they set up monitoring equipment to monitor what the particles are doing as they've been fired from the gun.
Yeah.
And then what do you think happened?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I will tell you. So
Go for it.
the particles, they did what they were supposed to do. They just did a straight line down the back wall. Like, right, so
What?
they're behaving the way we expect them to behave when we're observing them. When we don't observe them, they're doing something that we don't expect them to do. So they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. So they've gone, well, let's try something else. Let's fire the particle beams as we've been doing, but we won't turn the monitoring equipment on straight away. So they fired the beams are firing, and then they turned on the monitoring equipment. And do you know what happened?
They scattered.
No,
No,
they
no,
were
state.
they were
Oh, sorry.
they
Yeah.
were scattering against the back wall. As soon as they turned the monitoring equipment on, they've literally gone back in time to an earlier state and did what they're supposed to do and move
What?
in a straight line.
What the?
Uh,
So as soon as
exactly.
as soon as they've observed with monitoring equipment, the
Yeah,
behavior goes to the way you would expect. But
yeah. So it's doing. Yeah. So essentially, it's doing weird stuff, and then when you basically the equivalent of looking at what they're doing, they go whoop, go back to an earlier state, and then conform to what they're meant to be doing. So
oh my god, you know what this reminds me of? That old thing of if a tree falls
yeah,
in the forest and no one's there to see it, does anyone hear it fall or see it fall? Does it actually fall? Like
that is actually a part of the theory that we're going to come to in a minute. So you've jumped ahead because of your clever brain is thinking ahead on this.
really?
So there's scientists have they don't know why. Even now, they do not know why it does this, and they've offered a Nobel Prize to anyone that can tell them why it does this.
Let's work it out. Let's do it.
Yeah. So if you could come up with a theory about all of that. But that they do have a theory already. So what they're saying is that reality or particles, they only are performing to how you know they should perform when observed. So it's kind of then along now the ideas of, so do you know if you're playing a computer game, like Grand Theft Auto, for example, and you're looking ahead, the computer is only rendering what you can see. So behind you, it's just nothing there because until you look around, then it creates like the buildings or the road or whatever it is you're looking at.
Yeah.
So
In fact, you kind of see that on Minecraft, for example.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if you're in creative mode and you fly up into the sky and then travel really fast across the land, the land renders as you go and you can actually see it. And sometimes if the computer's playing up, you can fly up to the point where it hasn't actually rendered the land yet.
Yeah, because it's saving processing time. So what they're saying is that they're saving processing time by making stuff that if it isn't being observed, it doesn't need to use processing power to make it perform how it would be. So that along that theory there is that if there's a tree falling in a forest, does it make a sound? Well, if you look at the simulation theory, it's like, well, no, because in order for there to be reality, there has to be observation. So without anything observing it, there's nothing there. You're like a computer game that it's saving processing power.
So essentially we're creating the reality by watching it.
Yeah. And what they're also saying along the lines of the simulation is that matter isn't actually real. There is no matter. So everything that you're seeing is basically high vibrating, different energy that's vibrating at different speeds.
Yeah.
And then the brain, the human brain, is translating those energy waves that are vibrating into an object, a solid object. So it's like a hologram.
Yeah, well, this kind of makes sense to me because when I remember at school them talking, I'm sure it was physics, must have been physics, them talking about particles and everything made up of particles that are just and how solid something is depends on how I can't remember if they're just particles are closer together or they've got less energy. And do you know what I mean? Like, so that kind of thing kind of makes sense to me, because I always thought it'd be cool to sort of be able to control or repel particles, and you could stick your finger through walls and stuff. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? So that kind of makes sense. But that also reminds me of light. So everything doesn't really have a color like we see it. Our eyes just interpret the color.
Yeah.
And that, so I mean, essentially everything could just be white, but because of the way color bounces off certain things, I can't remember how that
Well,
works, but
you're right, and I think we only perceive something like 2% of the spectrum of light or something. So we're not seeing everything because we cannot interpret everything that is out there.
well,
So we're
you've
only
just
really seeing 2% of reality.
well, you just remind me of something else. There are women, and there's a tiny number of women in the whole world who do see another color that nobody else can see. And it's I can't remember what the condition is called or anything, but it is an actual condition, and it only occurs for women for some reason. And yeah, they see a color that nobody else can see.
How do they even show that though? It's like, oh,
I,
what's that color over there? Oh, it's blah blah blah. What's blah 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 color? Oh, don't you know? What?
I just I heard that sort of last year sometime. I haven't really looked into it, but that's a really interesting thing as well, isn't it? Like if you can't even imagine what another color would look like, because we can only imagine. I suppose we can only
Well,
imagine the colors we know of, and
I assume that you see the like a tree, that you see a green tree with a brown bark, and I can only assume that that color you're seeing is the same as the color that I'm seeing.
yeah.
Because how do I describe a color?
Well, it's green. That's how you describe. We only describe colors that we've been taught, or the color that we've been taught. So I could be seeing the color green. You could be seeing the color red. But if we're both taught that they are both blue, then we both see them as blue, I suppose.
Yeah. So you'll describe, well, that green's the same color as the grass. Well, I'm seeing it as red, and you're seeing it as green. Um, I can't say that you're wrong. You can't say that I'm wrong, because we're both saying, yeah, it's the same color as that.
Yeah. And the only reason we know people are colorblind is because um they don't see any different colors or anything. They just don't. They can't see the different shades of colors and stuff, can they? So um
Yeah.
so yeah, then that's how we know people are colorblind. Whereas, how could you know if you could see a brand new color? That's just amazing, isn't it? I think it's to do with UV or something, for these people. We'll have to talk about this another time, because I'll have to have a little research on that.
A little Google. But
Yeah.
that all comes down to, though, that we're basically running a computer program that defines what a color looks like, or what shape a certain thing should look like. So
Uh-huh.
that's not a car that I'm looking out on my window at now. What I'm actually looking at in reality would be vibrating waveforms
Yeah.
of energy. But then you'll be looking at the same vibrating waveform of energies, and because we're both running the same computer program, we've translated that into a shape of a car. So it will be universal for everyone, because we're all using the same code.
So, so what you're saying is, so who comes up with the idea in the first place then? Like, if is the car, and like if we get past the whole idea that everything is made of part energy and particles that vibrate at different rates, is that car actually there in the first place?
No, no, it's energy. Everything is energy. Nothing has
No,
mass, nothing has matter. It's just energy forms.
I know, but
Even the brain.
when we touch it and all that though, what are we touching then? Like because particles are so small. That's why things become solid. But what I'm saying is that solid thing actually there, or
Ah,
does it take someone to imagine it first?
no, so it's said even particles in this theory, they're saying it's just energy.
Hmm.
There's nothing solid. The smallest atom is just energy. So even your brain, they're saying, isn't physically there. It's just an energy pattern.
Yeah.
So there's not. So imagine there's only something there, because your brain and your body that you have now is just an energy form, but the brain, or your conscious, all right, your consciousness is generating a physical body for yourself, and your consciousness is generating that energy form of a car into a car. So then you've generated a form for yourself, and you've generated something for the car there. So you're basically, when you touch it, it's just the feeling of touch based on two different energy forms touching
So we
and
might not
repelling.
even. So we might not even actually be walking around.
No.
We're just imagining it all in a way.
So you're essentially right. So as it goes on a bit more in depth with the simulation theory, it's basically that nothing is real, not even the human body is real. It's just consciousness is creating that human body and that human persona that you see yourself as. You're just energy, and your consciousness forming a physical body, and consciousness creating the reality that you see around you. So then you start thinking to yourself, if this is a simulation and we're running a computer program to give a solid reality, in the same way that if you're looking at Grand Theft Auto and you're running around San Andreas, it's a whole world you're looking at there. And you can walk into a wall in that. But we both know that's just computer code. It's not actually a solid wall. It's computer code. And they're saying that if that's what we're potentially in of artificial reality. So the next question that you would ask is that, are we in base reality, or are we in a simulation within a simulation within a simulation?
Oh, Jesus. This is.
And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So what they think is that a civilization that grows so advanced will get to a point where they can create a simulation and put themselves into a simulation. And then that society will then eventually get advanced enough to create their own simulations within that simulation.
Well, the question I've got now then is, if what is so bad about actual reality, whatever that is, right? That you have to create a simulation. So, like the base reality have created a simulation to live in. Why are things so dire in the wherever they live, whatever reality that is, that
So
they?
what you're saying is that who the hell has created a virtual? You could create any kind of environment, virtual reality. You could fight dragons and all sorts of no. You're going to go into reality. You know what we're going to do there? You're going to get up for work every morning, go to work doing something you don't like, get knackered, get ill, and die eventually. Yeah. So where's the fun in that? Well, that is it.
That is the
Well, it's
fun.
either that or you go back to this reality where you get permanently tormented in fire. I'll take the going to work reality, please.
Or actually, or is it about craven experience?
Yeah, if you want, yeah, I think it's one of the theories put forward that it's to just go in here and then maybe learn something and then come out. If the actual reality beyond here is just basic energy, then it's energy beings wanting to experience a physical reality. And then even what you're thinking of is, oh my God, it's like, what, 80 years of life? Well, for an energy being outside of a simulation, it's probably a blink of an eye.
Yeah. And it's funny this because I mean, I went to a Catholic school, was brought up going to church and everything.
Oh,
And
same here.
at one point in my life, I've done the whole thing of like rebelling against it and all that, but I've always been really interested. Yeah, I've always been really interested in the Bible, and different religions as well, really. But I think in an academic sense, really. But I came to the conclusion that if anything, if I believe in anything, it's that we are energy and as one, and like the whole reality is a simulation aside, our energy kind of breaks off and lives within the human body until you die, and then once you die, once the body's had enough, the energy just goes back to where it was before, which is everywhere, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and in this theory, there isn't actually a physical body. the
Yeah.
body is a manifestation of consciousness, which is
Uh-huh.
an energy. It's created a suit for you to experience a physical reality by giving you a brain that's made out of rotating energy fields to create a hologram. So it's like the Matrix. That can you bend the spoon? Um, don't think of the boom. The boom. Don't think of the spoon is bending. Think of it as your mind is bending. So what they're saying in the Matrix, even in like the late 90s, is that it isn't the spoon doesn't actually exist. It's your brain or your mind, your consciousness that's creating the illusion of a spoon. So you
Yeah.
bend your mind, not the spoon. So it's that sort of idea here. So the Matrix was a film actually quite ahead of its time, but I think
Yeah.
drawing on simulation theory that's been knocking around for a long time.
And this reminds me of that other theory. I'm sure we've talked about this before, where and this is an academic theory as well. This isn't somebody just making some, got a good story idea. The idea that our because we still don't understand the brain fully. There's that, and they can't something to do with memories processing. They think, or somebody does. I wish I knew. I wish I knew who it was to off the top of my head, but they think that our memories are processed by the brain, but it's almost like it's streaming information. So our
Yeah,
actual, you've heard this before, haven't you? Where uh, our brains are like an antenna, I suppose, and all of our memories and experiences are stored in the cloud, which could be just everywhere as part of energy, and the human mind is like an antenna for that, which processes things. And in fact, that fits really well with what you're saying here
yeah.
uh, about us living life as a way to experience and learn.
In a physical
Um,
reality, which we
yeah,
create through energy
yeah,
manipulation.
and that's how it works. And actually, this fits with a few things actually, because I've thought throughout the years, I've kind of thought, oh, we made a helicopter, and a helicopter kind of mimics like bees and stuff, or you know what I mean. We create stuff to mimic what we already know, and computers, for example, kind of mimicking our brains, isn't it? It's storing information, and and so maybe because we're getting so even more advanced with technology, we're just mimicking what is already there. So a computer could essentially be a human, um, and the way we store information, like whether we're storing it on the computer or storing it like on servers on the cloud, um, could be really close to what the actual reality is. Like
Oh,
humans
right.
are the
Yeah. So this is a really interesting idea, which you've reminded me about. So we're saying that perhaps our reality is based on a reality that's similar to ours, but a little bit different, right?
Mhm.
So there's a theory that's saying that the reality that is actually in existence, that's on a level above ours,
Yeah.
that these people have created a simulation that's very similar to the reality. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, say, for example, we're looking at in reality beyond here, it's paradise. Oh, it's a lovely paradise. Why would you want to leave here, right?
Yeah.
So, some entity that the theory goes has created a reality based on that reality that they've got there and made it very similar and everything, and then have started tricking the people in that base reality into the reality that you've got here that is very similar to the actual paradise reality, but then they've started to change the simulation and they've started to put ideas in people's head of you live, you get born, you live, you die, and then you repeat and all that sort of stuff. And what they're doing is they've tricked you to think that this is actually the reality. And slowly over a long time, they've put more and more control in there to trap you in here, to make you forget about that paradise reality that you should be belonging in. And they're making you think that this is the actual reality. And it's like a prison. That's why life, or this sort of virtual reality isn't a really fun game to play. It's kind of started off as a base copy of the base reality, which is Paradise. Get you tricked into here, and then slowly corrupt it and change it, like Sauron, I suppose.
Isn't
But
so? Are we saying the elites are have knowledge of this,
there is
and
a
they're the ones?
there is a theory that there are a group that, and this is where it gets quite wild, but there's kind of an entity, a group that basically are controlling this to keep people locked in as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now what they're also saying is that, so if any simulation has to have a limit, it's its processing power. And what they think is that the processing power is the speed of light, which is why nothing can travel faster than light. It's the limit of the processing power. So that's why you have a limit there. And that's why everything is so distant from Earth. Because if you was to have other entities or aliens come into your simulation, then they're breaking through into your simulation, if you see what I mean. So that's why there's this isolation of the humans. Is there anything else out there? Well, there can't be, because this is simulated reality.
Yeah, and it would
But we
take too
don't know
much
it.
processing power to be able to run two sims in the same in the same system.
And what they're also, this theory is, the whole idea of reincarnation.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, right? Oh yeah, you live your life, you learn lessons, and then at the end of your life, you get reincarnated again after you've learned your lesson to learn more lessons. Yeah, but if all my knowledge of everything has got erased each time I go back and get reincarnated to learn lessons, then that doesn't really make sense. So what they're saying is that it's like you've got to go back to Earth again. It's like go through the light in the tunnel is like a trap to push you back into this reality again, rather than breaking out of it and going, oh, I'm not going back down there. I'm going back to the Paradise reality.
Yeah, but why would they want to keep you out of the Paradise reality?
Because they want to be able to control you within the reality that they have created and that they control. Where they
but
can't,
then
right? They can't threaten you with, we're going to put your taxes up or put you in prison in a Paradise reality where know that the essence of reality is energy. It isn't going to work like that. So
what is the purpose? What is the purpose of the control though? Like, is it purely like the energy beings or whatever it is, right? There's part of it that feels that wants power. Is that what it is, or is there another reason?
Right, this is going to get quite wild. I've read a lot of stuff on like nature realities and things, and what they're talking about is so they're talking about, like, if you look back at the biblical stuff there, and they talk about, say for example, when God said let there be light, there was light, and stuff like that's like the beginning of the simulation, that light speed, let there be light, that's like the simulation. So that was created there. And now what they're talking about is that these entities that have created this thing to trap consciousness in is keeping people controlled there, because these entities feed off suffering, fear, negativity, and it's like a farm, kind of like the Matrix. So they're farming conscious beings within a simulated reality trap that they've created in order to feed off the essence of negativity and suffering, which is why life generally is a struggle.
And that, well, I think we've reached a point in human history where we suffer a lot less, don't we? Well, I mean, not all of the world, obviously, but the Western world definitely. So is that why there are so many conspiracy theories now about dumbing down society, making things more difficult by the cost of living crisis and all kinds of stuff? Is because these entities need the negativity to continue, and if we we can't we couldn't possibly bring the world that is full of suffering to a point where a lot less people suffer because they're not getting as much of the negativity.
Or the other theory sort of goes in that what they're trying to do is put a control matrix in so that your individual like consciousness basically gets taken over by AI, which goes back to your earlier conversation. So if you're pushed basically into the idea that you're totally trapped within this body, you're controlled by an AI in essence, then they can do what the hell they like to you. So basically, they're going step by step by step closer to further control. And if you notice in the last few years, disaster into disaster into disaster into disaster, Brexit, climate change, Ukraine war, COVID, cost of living crisis, energy crisis. It's one after the other. Oh, and now banks collapsing.
Are we saying they're running out of ideas though? Because everything's happening one after the other now. They're like, oh, that didn't work. We need something else.
I think that what they do is they put it all to plan, and I think that they're giving you technology that they've had for a long time, but the smartphone is basically trapping minds into looking at social media and keeping you distracted with your smartphones. So eventually they do what they want with you because you're docile.
Yeah, like the WWE, the WEF saying that.
WWE.
Yeah, actually, it kind of is, isn't it? The whole, it's a drama, isn't it? But the WEF, just like them saying that in the future, I mean, they believe that there are useless people, don't they? And that useless people can be kept under control by just games and keeping them occupied in that kind of sense.
Yeah, it's bread and circuses. You keep the population docile and distracted whilst you do what you want. I mean, if you, it's going off on a tangent a little bit, but the WEF forum, the World Economic Forum, and their idea of 2030 that you'll own nothing and be happy, you'll live in smart cities, or the 15-minute city that you can get to everything you need to within 15 minutes. You rent everything you want. Food you're allocated, and
we're already halfway there. We're already halfway there. Like, people might own houses, but when it comes to other things, like people don't go out and buy CDs anymore. I mean, not unless you're really into music, you might buy records and things, but most people don't. They just subscribe to a service, and you don't really own any of that. Where's the fun? Where's the fun in that?
I stream all my music from Amazon Prime. So TV now I stream again, Amazon, Netflix. We should get sponsors for this. I'm trying to think. My car, I always it's on like a finance or something. And then probably what I might do is at the end of that finance, get another car on finance because they're expensive to buy. He's got like 20 odd grand sitting around. So I'm never really owning a car. So the concept of renting is there. The only things that I still buy, I think, physical is computer games, PlayStation games, because I like to have a physical copy because I know I can trade that in, lend them out. I can't do that if I bought digital.
Well, that's the thing. I'm the same. Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I download. In fact, we've got the PlayStation Plus, so I get the free games.
Yeah.
And like I've discovered, it was November, December. I was well into Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and they took it off the PlayStation Plus, so it meant that I could no longer play the game. So I was annoyed about that. So I ended up buying the game anyway. But it's one of those things where they can, you're paying for things. You've got they are providing a service, but they can easily just take things away from you as well. And you don't buy your car anymore. You just kind of on a deal. It's kind of like renting.
But interestingly, on that point, do you remember in the 80s, you didn't own a TV in the 80s, you rented it, radio rentals and stuff like that. But now it's weird because you just buy and own a TV. So
that's because they're so cheap now.
I think they made technology, you know what? They've made technology very cheap that you can actually buy the TV now. But if you own the TV, but everything you're watching on that TV, you're renting. Sky TV, Netflix, Amazon.
Well, there's a company.
You've bought that one product in order to make you rent the rest of the media you're looking at.
Yeah. There's a company in America. This is a housing company who are selling. Well, they're building places to rent, but they're selling the idea of renting as a much better thing than buying. You don't need to own it. It's more kind of aimed at single people, not families. But the idea is that you rent, you're saving money. You've got nothing to worry about. It all gets looked after. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're starting. I mean, it's a good marketing ploy, I suppose, if you're a company that rents housing.
Yeah.
To sort of try and make it as appealing as possible to rent rather than buy. So then you're going to continue to make money, aren't you?
I mean, really, my mortgage, my house, I own my house, but that's got a mortgage on it. So I'm spending 30 odd years repaying the mortgage. And then for that period where I've got no mortgage, I might, have another 20 years to live. And then the house will just, I suppose, inherit. It will then sell it off. So you work all these years trying to pay for a house that you'll only really own for a short period.
Yeah. But we're going well off here. I don't know, how did we even get onto this?
So
but this is so we're talking about these because we're talking about these beings that are controlling us to feed off the negative energy, and there's got to continuously work out ways to keep us unhappy. I know, in some kind of way.
Yeah, but
we've evolved so much to a point where there's so much less unhappiness and suffering in the world than there used to be, and
is there?
So, well, yeah, because I mean, since the Industrial Revolution, people's lives have improved sort of tenfold. But then it's relative as well, isn't it? Because I mean, there's no doubt actually, if we go back to the 1600s, let's just say, right, people really did live in absolute poverty, and but I think you were brought up in that world, so in a way you were used to it, and you could look at loads of different countries where the human rights atrocities and all kinds of stuff, and if you're brought up, you're used to a certain way, aren't you? And humans are really good at adapting, so you would adapt to and find happiness in the worst of situations, wouldn't you?
Who's telling you the history of the planet and what it used to be like?
God, yeah, that's a good
Who
question.
controls all of that? So,
yeah,
look, you never had all these luxuries you had back in 1066 or whenever have you. You'd have been bad off then. And you're like, well, I'm being told that, so I believe it. And I've been watching a lot of Graham Hancock's series on Netflix, Ancient Apocalypse.
Yeah,
And
really
I've been following
interesting.
him for years. And he talks about how there's this whole civilizations that archaeology and history will ignore because it doesn't fit in the template of what they're trying to tell you, where you can clearly see that there are clear signs of more advanced technologies through the Ice Age.
The thing is, I mean, he's not saying that they're more advanced in the sense that they've got aircraft, they're not to the point where as advanced as us. But for the time, there was like a reset, wasn't there? And they think it was that time when global water levels rose suddenly, and I mean, it could have coincide with an asteroid hitting the Earth or whatever. But and then those people were dispersed across the world, really, and then started to teach other people how to new technologies or newer technologies. But they were dispersed. I think that's the point in what he was saying. So, and that doesn't fit into the narrative, does it? Of like, oh well, some archaeologists are looking at a thing, and even though something appears to be a lot older than it is, it just doesn't make sense. So they'll just disregard it altogether. It's interesting, really interesting.
Yeah. So we're is it a case of you give for a few? Well, if you look at our history in the whole timeline, even of the last 1,000 years, you say within 1,000 years, our society, we've never had it so good, is probably about 2%, if that, over the last 1,000 odd years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a brief moment where we think, yeah, things are all great. But
Yeah.
then even if you go back to like the 70s, you hear people saying we never had central heating in our house, or,
Yeah.
you know, I was
Well,
working long hours, back breaking labour and all that.
yeah. We had a coal fire. We used to come round. I don't know, every other week or something, and we had a coal bunker, and they put the coal in the bunker.
Well, here's the thing you've got now. It's like my house hasn't got a fireplace or a real fire or anything like that. I'm
Hmm.
reliant on heat on British Gas or whoever is, or Shell Energy, that's supplying my boiler with gas.
Yeah.
So you've got me reliant on an energy company because I can't produce my own heat because my house hasn't got facility to do that. So
Yeah.
although we've never had it so good, yeah, but I've got to be thankful that there is an energy supplier that can actually provide all this stuff. So if you were
Yeah.
to switch the power off tomorrow, would be panicking like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I don't know how to grow my own stuff. I don't know how to do any of these skills. How do I
Oh,
make a fire? You're
well,
trapped in a
well, I mean,
system.
well, yeah, you're right. And this is just another side thing. In January, I started to grow vegetables,
Oh yeah,
and
I remember you saying.
yeah, I've got a whole year planned, as well as me snails, of course. But I've got a whole year planned. So every other week I plant more stuff. So obviously gone through a few months now. Got things like butternut squash, cucumbers, broccoli, sprouts, peppers. Got all sorts going on at the minute. They're only little, but it'd be really interesting to see how I go through this year with me plan of every couple of weeks, just plant a few more, keep it going, just chugging along, and then by next year, this time next year, where I am with harvesting it all and how much I'm able to harvest. I don't want to go over the top because you know it's like you get a load of seeds and you go plant them all, and then all of a sudden they all grow, and then you've got too much stuff to even eat. So at one time, so I'm that's why I'm pacing it. Um, and then by next year, if I just keep continuing it, then in theory, I'll just have like a nice steady stream of vegetables. I'm growing fruit and stuff as well, aren't I? So turn into a bit of a gardener.
I think I'd love to be self-sufficient like that, but I just
Yeah.
haven't got the patience.
Well, the thing is, though, to be self-sufficient, like like my family of four, if I wanted to be absolutely self-sufficient, I'd need chickens and stuff as well, wouldn't I? I'd
Yeah.
need chickens, maybe a goat for milk, and yeah, I'm gonna garden big enough for all of this.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if you look at old houses built around the time of the war or end of the war or during the war, around that time, they had big gardens. And I'm thinking people gardened more. And I think because of the rationing and things, people
Yeah,
would grow their own stuff or keep chickens and whatnot. And I think
yeah,
as our food's become abundant again, we've just stopped doing that.
yeah. We've lost the skill. And to be honest with you, it doesn't take much, you know. It's minimal effort. Um, Like, I mean, I started off because I started off in January. It was a bit cold. It's been a bit cold for a few months. I just grew everything in me in little I forgot what you call them now. The little sort of little trays, the little nursery trays where
Yeah.
you start everything
Feeding
off.
trays.
Yeah, just did it all in me dining room, and yeah, I had like I got stuff on the windowsill and stuff on the table, but um, but it's quite nice.
You
And
know
then you
what?
watch the
So you started in January, did you say?
yeah.
Oh, welcome to the spring when you're going to be constantly weeding. Then you'll be thinking, oh
That's all right.
God.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I've got the one in pots. I might evolve that though. Evolve it in there. I've got a little area in the garden that I could probably dig over. I want to do potatoes and stuff as well. Potatoes to begin with. I've done it before. In the last house I used to live. But the it even worked where the ground was really had like it wasn't very deep. The actual mud before you got to clay where I used to live. Um, and I grew potatoes, and all I did was plant potatoes I bought from Tesco.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah,
and
that's
it worked,
seeds.
and
Yeah,
it
you
worked.
just, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But anyway, we're going off. We're continuing to go off on one again, aren't we?
we are.
Where does this end then? So the world, if it is a simulation, let's set aside the whole thing about entities that are controlling everyone. that may or may not be true. But like, if we're thinking about things as being really just being really neutral, we are all an energy thing, and we create this world so that we can gain experiences and knowledge. So like, so where does it ever end?
Well, there's so the CIA did a paper. The CIA did a paper on in the 80s, I think it was, into something called the Gateway Experience. Now, it's a program that they looked at into the idea of astral projection and out of body experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And the CIA were taking this very seriously. And in this paper, they talk about how the same idea here that everything is energy, the human brain is just rotating energy fields, creating a hologram, that there's no such thing as matter, it doesn't exist. And they were looking at the idea that if you could leave the body, it could be an information gathering technique that they were seriously looking into. And they said that the idea is that if you leave the body, you're leaving the holographic simulation that you're in, and you're moving out of the simulation. So you're essentially your energy form outside space time, because space time is essentially all part of the simulation and all part of your experience that you're having. So they looked at the Gateway Experience, which it uses. Robert Monroe came up with this in I think the 60s, and what it does, it uses audio binaural beats, so
Mm-hmm.
it different frequencies playing in one ear and the right ear at different hertz frequencies. And the idea is it's supposed to put the brain into like sync it so it's running at the same speed on both halves, in order to get into a state that you can actually astrally project and separate your consciousness from that physical simulated mind that you've got.
Oh my god, this is reminding me of Stranger Things.
It's basically the upside down world, when the girl in it, what's her name?
11.
Seven. She goes to that dark
11.
place. Or 11, that was it, 11. Yeah, she goes to that dark place, the other place, doesn't she?
The
Because
upside down, yeah.
yeah, or even that place in between, it's all black.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, I know too. Yeah,
and she's
where she
remote
can.
viewing people, isn't she?
Yeah.
It's that idea, and the CIA actually did a full training program on that. And so it's a 25-page document that they've declassified fairly recent, 2003, I think it got declassified. And it's a 25-page report, but the last page is missing. And it's basically talking about, it starts off talking about how it could be used as a tool and all that. Then he starts going into the reality, the nature of reality. There is no matter, nothing is real, blah blah blah. And it says about the idea that there is something else out there, that consciousness, well, it can exist outside of the body. And it sort of goes along the lines of, and the purpose of life would obviously be too. And then the next page is missing.
What?
What?
We need to know this.
Yeah, it's almost like they were about to like reveal the whole nature of reality and existence, and then they've not got the last page declassified. It just
Oh
abruptly
man,
stops.
that's even worse than redacting a load of information, isn't it? It's just a whole page missing.
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is that you have a CIA that were taking the matter seriously about this kind of thing. You've got quantum physicists that have been studying into the idea of simulations for many years now, with various experiments, the particle system, and it's now becoming. But I think Elon Musk said there's a 50-50 chance that we're living in a virtual reality, and there's a 1 in billion chance that we're living in the base reality. So there we are.
Well, Kev, you've blown my mind.
I know.
What are we going to do about this?
Well, so the CIA have got they used the Robert Monroe teaching tapes called the Gateway Experience that guide you through to the various stages to get there, and I have actually got the tapes of which
What?
I've been using.
So how does it work then? You just listen to them and
You basically you listen to them. They tell you to visualize various stuff, but they're playing like binaural beats, so they're like one frequency in one headphone and another in the other.
yeah.
And then you relax yourself into a state. And he says the first level you've got to get to is called Focus 10. And then there's Focus 11, Focus 12, and you build up to it. And I have to say, doing it, it's very strange experiences that I've been having with it. The first sort of things that I've been feeling when you start doing it, it's weird. Your body feels really, really heavy. It's kind of like you go into a state where your body goes to sleep, but your mind doesn't.
Okay. So is it like it might be the opposite? I was going to say, is it like meditating?
It's a similar process, but it's kind of guiding you and using these frequencies. It's kind of like white noise, some of it, and it's hemisync. They call it hemisync. So hemispheres of the brain. There's two sides of the brain. So if you look at transcendental meditation, for example, they will fixate on a mantra, a repetition of a certain sound or a phrase. And the idea is eventually you're supposed to hit a certain level of awareness. And it's the same thing as that, but it's kind of using technology in order to like, they think that if you play 100 hertz frequency and 104 hertz frequency, the brain will hear the frequency in between, and that will force the brain into a sync.
This is wild. So how does it? So apart from like feeling heavy, what else? So what is supposed to happen?
Right. So when you what as you go on, the idea is you practice and practice this technique, and you're supposed to get to the point that you start feeling your body vibrating at the point just before you can astrally project. I haven't got to that stage yet. All I've got to is basically, I would say, heavy state of relaxation where the body feels very heavy. But at night, I've had some weird experiences. So last night, for example, I had a dream that I'm flying over an ocean, like to a very far off distant land. Now, that was interesting because it's very much the theme of astral projection and traveling outside your body. It could have just been a dream, but I've had some freaky experiences. The first night I did this, I got woken up because it felt like someone smacked me really hard in the back of the neck. So that freaked me out. The next night, I had the sensation of someone pulling my arm up and holding my arm by the wrist, and then they let go, and then they did it again. But then what really jolted me awake was it felt I had a sensation of someone cutting my hand off.
What?
So that was quite weird.
This is like you enter in a different dimension where there's like the evil you,
Yeah.
and they've realized that you're appearing, so they're trying to kill you, or they're breaking through into your reality and they're just going to murder you and then live your life.
Oh, I'm writing down this plot point. So make a good novel. So yeah,
Well, this just sounds weird.
Well, I mean,
And
I'm open-minded skeptic. I'll be like, oh, well, that's interesting. I'll give it a go and see what happens. And like,
yeah,
I can objectively describe my experiences without putting any kind of religious connotations on it. And I've got a skeptic mind, so that that if something does actually happen, so is like not me just exaggerating. I'll be very scientific about it.
yeah.
But and that's why
I've
I say
got
so far, all those experiences I've just described to you, I cannot put it down to something definitely paranormal. It might just be because I've had a waking dream or I've been half asleep at the time when those experiences have happened.
yeah. I've got to try this.
Yeah, I'll have to give you the tapes if I can
Yeah,
give you a cloud drop or something for them. And we
yeah,
can
well,
compare experiences, and that'll make it an
yeah,
interesting podcast. So the next podcast we'll do a gateway experience podcast with discussion of our experiences.
definitely. Knowing me though, it'll be really boring. Everything I've ever tried is just kind of nothing.
No, you're going to be.
Nothing happened.
No. I know what it's going to be like. Oh my God, Kev! I can't believe it. After the third attempt, I've literally just found myself floating above my body, looking down, and then I saw all these unicorns. But
I saw the future, Kev. I saw the future, Kev. Don't get in your car. Don't drive.
yeah. Oh my God.
You'd be driving at the time when I'm talking to you. It'd be like,
yeah.
what?
And it's your warning that distracts me, that
Yeah,
causes me to
exactly.
crash.
Oh, this is something else we could discuss at some point. But the whole thing of like seeing the future, seeing your own death, and trying to stop your own death. But if you're seeing the future, it's either you're going to bring on your own death by trying to stop your death because you've seen the future, or you know what I mean. If you do nothing, then you're going to die in that way because that is just the future. It doesn't matter what you do, whatever you do is going to lead to that moment, isn't it? Because it is the future.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting. There's the Hitchhiker's Guidebook, the last Hitchhiker's Guidebook spoilers. So, where is it? He basically, after Dent is told that I'll see you on this planet Alpha Omega or something like that. Oh, okay. Well, they go to a situation in the last book where they're all about to die, and he goes, well, hang on, I can't die because I haven't visited Alpha Omega yet, so I know that I'm not going to die.
ah.
And then you find out he's in a club that's called Alpha Omega. Like, so you can't avoid
Yes.
your own fate.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Oh well, I mean, it's been so fascinating, all of this, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to trying the tapes and see what it actually does, whether it makes a difference or not. I mean, I'm not into meditating or anything. That doesn't really do anything for me. But this is the next level, isn't it?
It's this isn't really so much sitting there meditating. You lay down
Mm.
on your bed. It's relaxing. I've actually found it addictive. So here's another result I have had from it. So maybe it's my age, but
You know,
in
a
the
drug addict.
afternoons I'm getting very drowsy and sleepy, and like, oh, I could easily have a nap. But
Uh-huh.
since doing this, I've been a little bit more alert in the afternoons.
Oh.
Yeah, give it a whirl. I'll let
Yeah,
you know your
definitely.
results. We'll
Yeah,
compare notes.
all right then. We'll not rant on much more then. I suppose you've been listening to anything else you want to say, Ken?
No, I'm just blowing my own mind with some of those theories. I'm going to have a long lie down now.
Well, you've been listening to Kev and Steve on Nerds Talk, and subscribe to our podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, Audible, Overcast, YouTube, and Rumble. And you can also find my stuff at stevensweeney.co.uk. And check out my comic book at brinkcasefiles.com.
It's awesome. You're quick.